I'm just cutting a little bit off of this board because they only had 8 foot and 5 foot sections, not two 6 foot sections. And I have a little cubby that's 11 foot, 4.5 inches wide that I was planning on putting this desk into. Here I'm using one of those weed burners, a torch that you can get at any hardware store that costs like 30 to 40 bucks. And it has a little wider flame on it than a propane torch does. And I figured that would be better than having the focused flame of the propane torch and give it a little bit more like room for error while I was burning, because this was the first time I've ever tried to do this. The video is also sped up by about 10 times, I believe. And I was constantly moving the head back and forth on the torch just so it wasn't sitting in one spot for too long, so it didn't just burn in too hard in one spot. Also, if you heat up one spot too long and it gets too hot in one area, the wood can start cupping, and yeah, so it helps to move it around instead of just, constantly burning in one area. You can go for a deeper burn though, but you have to go over it with a nylon brush or something like that afterwards, and ends up creating like a more uneven surface. Like there's more ridges and stuff and bumps. But I mean, for like tables and stuff, I'd imagine it looks good. But it was a computer desk, so this is a smaller 5 foot section of board that I was burning. The overall width of the cubby was about 11 foot 4.5 inches or so. So I cut the other one to 6 foot 4.25. And yeah, I've just been having fun doing this actually throughout the process. It was actually pretty interesting to do. It was fun to watch. It kind of reminded me of pressure washing, except for the opposite. Instead of cleaning something off, I was making it look darker. I also knew as I was doing this that no matter what I did, even if I just put a clear coat over it, it would still look better than the last desk that we had done. It was the same type of glued edge board, but it was the 3/4 inch stuff instead of the 1.25 inch stuff. And it was pretty much put together in a rush when we moved the last time. It had gotten just stained like a plain golden oak stain on it. And it was just mounted up with like shelving hardware, like the big shelving hardware. I'm using a small butane torch to hit the edges of it so it has like the same burnt pattern as the top does. These 4x4s are like the legs of the desk. I have 3 of them. I accidentally left one back at the place, and I ended up burning it a little bit later in the video because I brought it back with me the next day. I'm also not too worried about it being perfect on these ones because I kind of wanted them to be a bit darker, so they didn't stand out as much as the desktop does. And for people who are wondering, what's happening here is, while I'm hitting it with a torch, the softer wood is burning before the harder wood is. So the softer wood gets dark right away, and then it ends up leaving a little bit lighter spots where the hard wood is. If you do like a full deep burn and then you go over it with a nylon brush afterwards, it actually ends up leaving the hard stuff that's burnt, and then the soft stuff gets rubbed away by the nylon brush, and then that ends up becoming the lighter areas. So it's like pretty much the exact opposite. But that's also what causes the ridges that I was talking about earlier in the video. I'm burning the 5 foot section again here to get a little bit darker coloring in it, and also to remove a little bit of the blotchiness, make it more even from end to end, pretty much. I'm going to make a kind of embarrassing admission here. I ended up dyeing the wrong side of this board. When I came back to dye it the next afternoon, I saw like a splotchy side on it, and then the other side I had burnt as well because it had cupped a little bit. So I ended up picking the non-splotchy or blotchy side. And you know what? It worked out because my partner wanted it a little bit lighter anyways, so that's fine by me. Also, I know that he would have hated having a big old splatter on his desk just sitting there. And again, I'm reburning the longer section, the 6 foot 4 inch section, just to get some deeper color in it. And even it out a little bit. I really, really like how it's starting to look here. So I just keep on going and getting darker and darker on this because I know that this is going to be my side of the desk anyways. And I definitely wanted the deeper burnt look on my side for sure. We were also planning on having a little space in the middle to put a cubby that we hold our snacks in. And I was just going to put that on the end of my side of the desk so it didn't impede on his space. So either that or our mini beverage fridge, which is the same height and about the same width. And on the top, we'll put our little snake tank. I ended up coming home with a snake this summer from a job site that was way too far away to drive back and drop it off at. I named him Tony as a joke because my cat's name is Toby. I'm just burning the edge that I want for the exterior of my desk with my propane torch quick so it matches the rest of the grain and it will match the trim on the front. These skinnier pieces are the trim that I'm going to be using to hide the screws on the top of the desktop that I'll use to mount down into the frame below. And they matter a little bit more, but I only need to get one side, like one flat side and one skinny side done on them because the bottom and back are never going to be showing anyways. So, and it looks like my ADHD kicked in there. These are the boards that will be below the desktop, right on the front, flush with it to hide like the frame and the legs and stuff like that. So they do matter a little bit more too, and I'm glad they had some nice patterning on them. This 2x4 is going to be the part that's the visible exterior part of the frame. I'm going to end up cutting it down to match up with the 1x3 that I'd ripped right above there and burnt previously. Oh, look, here's that 4x4 that I had forgotten to bring with me the other day. I'm doing the burning inside of a garage, but both garage doors are open and there's a couple of fans going on the back side of the garage blowing air outwards. So it's pretty well ventilated and it barely even smelled like smoke in there while I was doing this. I did a little test with my butane torch when I first got the wood and it smelled like smoke in my place. I decided to put the clip of me ripping this 2x4 here since it didn't really fit elsewhere. I was just taking off one edge to make sure it was nice and flat. Used a piece of the 1x3 to make sure it was the exact right size. And here I am ripping it. And it's dyed already, but I'm just getting to that right now here. So you could see that I had definitely not used the right side for this smaller board here. In my defense, though, I'd been working on my truck since like 10 o'clock the night before because I think my tailgate fell off and I needed that to get this back home. A few weeks previous, my tailgate fell completely off. One of the tabs that holds it in place, the metal and framing around that ended up rusting out completely. So it just kind of got kicked into the box of the truck and I had to weld in some metal. I was able to pull off the actual tab and then remount that onto the metal, but it was kind of a pain in the butt to try and figure out what I was going to do with it. Also, when that fell off, it ended up yanking some of the rear driver's side tail lights and broke a couple of the wires, so I had to fix those as well. So for the dye, I actually used RIT, like synthetic dye. I used like the racer red, black, and also an orange, sunrise orange, I think it was. The red was not quite deep enough, and so I added some black, but I also wanted a little bit of that fieriness from the orange in it, so that's kind of why I ended up using all three. I ended up mixing, like, say 10 parts red, maybe 2 or 3 parts black, and then 1 or 2 parts orange, like 1 part orange pretty much. I'm using a cheap edging brush or edger to apply the dye. You can use a rag or whatever you want, but I figured this way, if it had a handle on it, I wouldn't get as much on myself because I know how I am with that kind of stuff. And also, it was better than wasting one of my good brushes just to dye this. I also went over it a couple of times to get the color that I wanted, and this did not have as much black as I wanted in it. So this next batch that I mixed, I added a bit more black into it, so it'd be a bit darker here. You can see right away that it actually does. It had a big difference in the color. Also on these, I only need to get the color on one side and one edge, just like I did before, because that's all that's going to be showing. The back half and one of the skinny sides of each is not going to be shown. In fact, the 1x3 and 2x3 pieces here are actually, the front is the only part that's going to be shown, as well as the edge, I guess. By 2x3, I mean this 2x4 here that you saw me trim down to a 2x3 previously on my table saw. And I'm just making sure to apply enough to where it'll soak in and actually, absorb into the wood. And also, heads up, if you ever do this, do not make the mistake that I did. I ended up staining or putting over a polyurethane over it like too soon afterwards. Like even these larger edge glued boards up there are not dry enough. Even though they look dry, they are not dry enough. There's still going to be moisture in the wood, and I dealt with like 85, 95% humidity for about a month straight here. So like I just could not catch a break when it came to applying the polyurethane, which is what I'm about to start doing right here. And fair warning, if you use a water-based like clear coat, like a polyurethane, like I use a triple thick polyurethane because we have 6 cats and I wanted to have a good, nice, thick top coat, that there will be some residual bleeding from, even when it's dried, from the dye that's left over on the surface of the wood. And that will cause your stain to start to get a little pink after a little while if you keep on going back into it. So just be forewarned. I, of course, didn't think about the fact that there would be a residue from the dye because I'd already sanded everything down and got it prepped before I dyed it, thinking that, oh yeah, it'll be nice and smooth after the dye is applied, so I could just apply polyurethane then. This is my first time trying anything like this at all, so like there's bound to be some errors here and there. And I do have to say I'm pretty pleased with the colors that are coming out on these trim and frame piece here. You can tell by the end of the board that I'm working on right now and the one next to it that they look completely different. They look, dead or like dry, or kind of bland looking. I ended up putting like 3 coats on the actual desktop, so I think that should keep it nice and safe from the cats. I mean, we kind of have spots for them on the desk anyway, so they could chill out while we're gaming and stuff. So I'm only actually doing 3 sides of these 4x4s. One side is never going to be seen anyways. It's facing back towards the wall, and that way it makes it just easier than having to touch the sides that I'd already laid the polyurethane on. And as I'm finishing these up, I'm putting them over on some 2x4s that are laying down on the ground just to let them dry out and keep them off the table, because I'm going to be using the table here to stain the actual desktop. It was the first day that it had dropped below 85% humidity in probably 28 days, I think it was. And there was this brief window between like 9:30 and like 1 o'clock, and it was down at like 55 to 62% humidity between that point in time. So I was like, I have to get out there and do that, because I did not know if I was going to have another chance, for another 2-3 weeks maybe at that point. As I said earlier, I had an issue with the humidity, and when I applied the polyurethane the first time, it was just kind of cloudy and gnarly looking. So I sent it all the way back down, and I'm putting my first like fresh coat back on after I had put a little bit more color into it with some of the RIT dye. And then I'm doing this, and I plan on sanding it back down a little bit and then going over it with the brush twice more pretty much after this. But it's kind of, at this time of the year, it was just having issues with the humidity pretty much. I didn't realize that my phone had actually ran out of space, and I went to go record the second application of poly. And when I went to go stop it at the end, it was just a black screen, and I opened it up and it was like 5 seconds of me doing stuff. And I was like, no, not worth it. So this is my final coat here. And overall, I think it looks really nice. Like I said, the issue with using the wrong side of the shorter board, but like I said, my partner said that they wanted it like not as dark colored, so I guess that works out. And you can see a little bit of brush strokes, but this is a triple times thick one, so it's like a self leveling, and it ends up being like nice and perfectly smooth and flat. You can see this is right after I finished here, so it's still wet. So it'll get a little bit smoother, but I love the colors. I'm pretty happy with what happened. I wish I would have dyed the other side, and I might eventually flip the thing over and put some dye and poly on it, because why not? And here's what the desk looks like put together. I still have to do the grommets and pass-throughs and plug adapter things and stuff still, but if you want to see how it's all put together and all that's done, part two will be coming soon. Have a good one.